you. Good evening. Welcome to study session of April 9th. Donna, will you do a roll call, please?
I will. Councilmember Blush,
Here.
Councilmember Sherman,
Here.
Councilmember Gutierrez,
Here.
Marinesco,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schmidt. Councilmember Stearns is joining us via Zoom. And Councilmember Gilmore.
Here.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Deputy Mayor
Thank you.
Joe Schmidt. He has a statement to make.
Yeah, hey, so we all run for city council. We have big hopes and dreams that we're gonna solve all of the problems of Sheldon and fix them all, once we're elected. And then we get elected and reality kind of kicks in and we learn just how hard that is and how difficult, a battle we kind of have to fight to just move the needle a little bit, here in our community. But running for office is a really unique, opportunity to kind of shape growth, solve problems and, advocate for people who don't have a voice or not much of a voice in our community. I've absolutely loved, the opportunity to serve as a city council member in Sheldon. I feel like I approached it with a high degree of dedication and commitment, probably a little bit, too much at times, which kind of is leading me up to where I'm at today. Overall, I find myself kind of at a little bit of a crossroads, recently, especially, mostly where, my values and the values of, the community and the council, aren't fully in line, and that's okay. Because I think the other thing is when you're in a leadership position, it's important to realize, when it's time to step down and pass it on to somebody else, and hope that, their drive and motivation carries on and fresh set of eyes or brains on a problem, actually move the needle a little bit further. So as such, I am choosing, to step down, effective tomorrow. A lot of gratitude, feeling very humble. I'll also say decision to step down, I'd like to get some personal time back. The balance between full-time job and full-time council job, I'll say, was tough, especially the last couple of years. It's been really tough, especially with some of the community divisiveness and challenges just nationally, globally. It's just been really difficult. And honestly, too, kind of with that, strategic. Turning out for these positions, I wasn't intending on running for a third term. And turnout for people wanting to run for this is seemingly lower and lower each time. So the thought of stepping aside sooner than my term ending is somewhat strategic. The next person will get appointed, go through an appointment process or just an open public process. Hopefully they'll like it and stick with it and get to know the job well and run for the position when the time is right. And again, it gives the community a good step and not through a campaign process, but a nice open public process to select the next candidate. I want to thank the staff, Mark. Obviously, you know how I feel about the leadership team, but Donna, Mark, JJ, you guys are great. The millions of dollars in projects that we've completed in the last 6 years are incredible. With the staff, we didn't give you any extra staff, we didn't give you any extra revenue, but you guys pulled off some amazing feats, and I'm impressed, and I firmly believe we do it better in the small city than any of the other 250 something cities in Washington State. There's a lot of work left to do. And I'm confident now that the city is actually on a good course. We have bumps in the road that are definitely gonna hit. We're looking at budget problems every other year, it seems like, but we got good people and like I said, I'm confident that things are gonna go well. And to whoever comes on next, my big word, it's not a popularity contest, as much as it seems like it is. You're gonna have to make tough calls. You're gonna have to piss off friends and family members, or we're not gonna get anywhere. There's gonna be those moments and it's just gonna happen. Stand by your convictions, stay true to yourself in the community. And again, I'm very thankful for the time and looking forward to moving on to other things and spending some movies in the park nights as opposed to other things. So, again, thank you guys very much and, see you around.
Right. Well, Joe, I'd like to thank you for your service. We've been working together for 6 years on the council, 2 years mayor and deputy mayor.
Yeah.
We've not always agreed on issues or how to solve an issue, but we definitely respect each other's decisions. And sometimes we convince each other that our idea was better than the other. And I really appreciate that and respect you. I don't want to offend anybody, but I don't think anybody comes here more prepared than Joe for a meeting. But I really appreciated working with you and that's a big thing to fill.
Thank you. So,
I'm gonna miss a lot of your questions.
yeah. Yeah.
A lot of your questions help me see things that I wouldn't have even known to ask before, and I will definitely miss that.
You've just earned my respect for the past 2.5 years that I've known you, every day. And I've learned to trust, your information and what you bring. And, I hope that I can somehow, bring as much truth and thoughtfulness as you did to the position as you did. Thank you.
Joe, you brought humanity to politics for me, believe it or not. You came from New York like I did. So you remember that those were just talking heads on the TV. And then when I came here and met that there was actually a real person, I was running for office. That's why we went out there and waved signs with you. You know, you were a
That's
real
right.
person. Once upon a time, me and my kids were all out there with you, remember?
That's right.
You know, didn't always.
They were little then. They were really little.
Right?
Remember? Oh, yeah.
We had a whole bunch of people out there. It was fun.
Yeah, bro.
You know, we didn't always agree on everything, but you know what? I tell you what, you stood up and you got a lot done. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
I mean, we haven't worked together very long, but I've really appreciated the knowledge that you brought to the council and how prepared you've always been. You always are 100% in everything. I think that's gonna be something that's really missed, so I think, but as the mayor said, huge shoes to fill, so.
Very much. Thanks. Tom.
Yeah, on behalf of staff, I'll speak. It's a change. We're used to, I'm used to change a lot around here.
Yeah,
Spending so much time here. But we're pretty resilient, staff, because of those changes and because of the nature of local government. You redirect, you keep, or you keep moving forward and keep marching forward. I think that's what a couple of things Joe talked about. We've got a great staff here. We are the better than this community. That doesn't change whoever see it. I will say that the proactive, pragmatic nature and approach that Joe has brought to this position has really been a benefit to the city and to staff. Part of it is, I think, his background, his current position. It's a different beast, right? This is unlike any other. It's different than anything else anybody's ever done is working in local government. Till you dive into it for a few years, it's hard to really imagine what it takes to do things for making successful in the last few years. We would say with love. That is the foundation.
Anyone else have any more comments? Again, thank you, Joe,
Thanks, guys.
for your 6+ years
See
of
you tomorrow.
service and
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow for coffee.
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
And everybody that's embarrassed Joe, it's his birthday tomorrow.
Oh,
Do
thanks.
we want to sing to him or just tell him happy birthday?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Kept that secret for a little while. I'm gonna awkwardly step off now. Enjoy the rest of your meeting and see you. Yeah.
You can excuse the absence.
I showed up. Take care.
Thanks.
See you later.
See you.
All right. Our first study item is request for information regarding the development of permanent supportive housing. City Manager Mark Ziegler has details.
Mayor.
I hope so. You're the only one here.
Exactly. Okay, thank you very much. So the first item tonight is a request for information that has been drafted by Mason County in cooperation with city staff. So this is really born out of an interlocal agreement from 2019 that the city entered into with Mason County to collaborate on efforts to increase affordable housing in our community. So that was it really started with some funding opportunities through House Bill 1406, which was the collection or redirection of some existing sales tax revenues to local jurisdictions. It was about $18,000 a year is what was anticipated to be generated in 2019 for the city. The county had their opportunity to collect too, and so at that point, particularly with the Housing and Behavioral Health Board and Mason County Health being able to contribute funds to address homelessness and housing more efficiently than the city has set up, particularly that without any staff dedicated. We entered into that interlocal agreement to allow the county to collect those funds, pool those with theirs, and distribute those through efforts that are advised by the Behavioral Health and Housing Board that the mayor sits on right now. So this RFI is kind of born out of that project. This is an opportunity to seek information for permanent supportive housing within the area. It doesn't necessarily have to be the city, can be, but certainly this type of housing, usually apartment complexes, need the urban services that are possible in the city or close to the city. So it's more likely that it's located fairly close within the city or close to it, where there's urban services. The first step of this RFI is seeking information from providers that would be able to implement or have a plan to implement a permanent support housing project up to 40 units, again, somewhere within city or growth area, close proximity. But after that, it's pretty open-ended. What would you need to come and provide that service in the community? That RFI would be accepted, and then we would review in partnership with the county, Behavioral Health and Housing Board, those requests for information, those responses for the request for informations, and then a request for a proposal would be sought from that corporation, that individual, most likely group, entity, to further refine what kind of project that might look like. There has been priorities established by the Behavioral Health Advisory Board and the homeless response system, which is one, no families with minor children. No young adult transitional age youth 18 to 21 sleep outside. Hopefully we're making progress with Shelton Youth Connection with their units down here on 2nd Street, and then no seniors sleep outside. You'll see the incentives next. This is kind of where it gets more participatory and broad and more specific on what can be provided local community to incentivize these types of projects. What kind of funds would be required to be allocated to this type of project? Can we reduce some of our zoning code requirements? Maybe it's lot coverage, maybe it's parking requirements. A lot of these facilities don't have a lot of vehicles, right? Associated, a lot of people don't have cars, particularly if they're not, if they don't have housing, a lot of them don't have vehicles. What kind of connection fees to utilities, permit fees, or impact fees might be associated? The city has the ability to waive some of those or reduce those in certain circumstances for affordable housing. In some instances, those might need to be offset by general fund dollars. So we certainly have to look at that. Expedited permit processes are also really important. If somebody wants to invest in a project like this, they need to know that the permits are going to be available to them in certain time frames. They can start construction. They don't see that, that inflationary increase down, right? Obviously, there's land use and zoning issues. Our current neighborhood residential zone allows these multifamily units with a plan unit development designation or land use process. In certain instances, a conditional use process might be required. Those would take some code changes to amend. Be nice to see kind of what some of these providers are looking at, what they're doing in other communities, what they would recommend they would do here in our communities, kind of give us some more information on how we might be able to accommodate that through our own code, whether it's zoning. Again, permitting environmental impacts, those are all done through the SEPA process. You can't waive that environmental process that the state requires us to go through. So that would be required in every instance. Because this RFI is essentially incorporated in the interlocal agreement, that agreement is already in place. What I would basically inform or ask the council is that we move forward Mason County developing this RFI further for publication. There's some dates in here in early 2024, January, February, March 24, release of the request for proposal. Obviously we updated, but since we have the ILA in place, we have representation on the behavioral health and housing board. I think to work through this process, I think that we're already established. And if you have any questions at this point or comments, we can certainly add those to the discussions with Mason County staff to further refine this RFI, and getting this published out to providers and see what kind of opportunities are in this community. Any questions?
Comments or questions?
Certainly will.
What's the definition of supportive housing?
There's an element of case management.
And this is really just, we're going out looking for information. This is not, we're not got this big plan. We're just seeing what's out there. What can somebody bring to us, Shelton, for affordable housing, supportive housing?
It doesn't bind the city
Yeah.
in any way through this RFI
Yeah.
process. Yeah, to be clear, that's a great,
Ju-
point. We're not bound with
Yeah.
the information. You might not get a response to refine our RFI and go through a different process. If the respondents get back to us in the RFI process, that we really need property, we need 5 or 10 acres within an urban environment that have utilities at their doorstep before, we even consider bringing a facility like this to the community. Great. We come back to the council, we look at options, we work with Mason County, where our property is available, what kind of utility services available, what kind of funding is available. Do we need seed grant funds? Does the county has some funds already available to them? What kind of partnerships can be developed with these potential providers? I think it just gets us kind of off the ground, because we've never done this before. Frankly, it's ground territory.
So how does this information get out to potential? I don't know, organizations?
Yeah, so Mason County, through the Department of Health, their housing staff have contacts with these organizations. We've reached out to other communities that have that may have information regionally for organizations. There's Interfaith Works and Catholic Community Services and VI. Organizations like that that are well known in the community in the region that certainly would be most likely to come here. You're probably not recruiting somebody from outside of Western Washington. So those organizations will be sought out specifically and targeted with the RFI.
Yeah, Mark and I had a meeting with Peninsula
That's Alliance.
that does affordable housing projects, and they're interested in coming to Mason County as well. Maybe they might be interested in this RFI and responding to this RFI as well, so.
So you send them an email or a letter, or how does that exactly work?
Yeah, you find the contact and most likely it's an email with this RFI specifically attached, so the instructions on what we would want to see in a response. And
That would fit into the art.
yeah, absolutely.
They definitely have some money for it. They know where to get the rest of it.
Yeah, they're not called the ARC anymore. That's where they combine with Peninsula.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah,
So the Peninsula Alliance.
Okay.
Yeah, no idea. But
Other
yes,
management.
absolutely, their VP of housing was here last week. Met briefly with the mayor and I, and that's specifically why they visited the community, is see what kind of opportunities for to provide housing for individuals with disabilities. They have a 30-unit complex in Bremerton right now that they own, manage, and operate, and they're looking to expand their services into Mason County. Again, a little generic right now.
Right.
It's a little broad, right? But the hope is that this starts getting refined as we bring partners, potential partners, and individuals that have been involved in these processes before and have waded through these waters. And they can help us kind of refine this to a point where we can get out a request for proposals, get a more refined proposal, and we're actually able to provide. That's facilitate a project like this. We know the housing is needed.
Yep, I'm supportive.
So if they do respond, and obviously most of them have experience in this, they probably have already done this in other places. Can we do like a little field trip, to go check them out? I mean, maybe not all of us together, but.
Yeah, reference check and,
Right, just kind of look at it and see,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, okay.
yeah, I think certainly you want to see how operations are conducted in other communities.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
part of the selection.
Yeah, just so early in the process,
Right.
an RFI
Yeah.
is not anything close to building a site somewhere.
Yeah. What we'll do is, we'll provide regular updates to the council. You won't have to necessarily get behavioral health and housing support. So, we'll put together a timeline with some benchmarks and be able to provide that to council. It might be emailed out if there's nothing, it's just informational purposes, but if there's leading up to decision, we'll go through the normal briefing and agenda process with council. If there's gonna be any decisions that will be asked of council.
Right. I'm supportive.
Supportive content.
We obviously need housing. so.
Member Blush. Supportive of moving.
Oh, yes.
There you go. All right. Okay, our next item for Mark is the council protocol manual.
So as a result of the council retreat a couple weeks ago, received great feedback on some items within the protocol manual. I made some edits and just wanted to go through those with you tonight. To make sure we're going down the right path. Some of them are just text amendments, some are certainly more involved. On page 6, I'll just show it here, the oath of office. We had a different oath of office within the protocol manual that was being used most recently, so we're updating that to the current practice. Next one will be on page 17. As I scroll through here, they're going to get dizzy. Watching mine. The mails and deliveries 3.04. Just again, some text amendments. It talked about a mailbox located at the entrance to the city hall. I went through and changed City Hall to Shelton Civic Center just for accuracy. And just describe the mailboxes that are provided to council upstairs. So again, not a substantial change, but we're opening this up, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to make these as appropriate. Page 22. Proclamations, as I was doing some research with other communities, and in the past, we've had some questions about how proclamations came to the council. Some other communities actually have a formal application process where a member of the community can fill out an application, request a proclamation to be added to the agenda. So we consider that the agenda. Again, proclamations are eventually ceremonial, not necessarily statements to the council. But if this is more of a question for you tonight, if you'd like to have a more formal process and an application, couple of the applications I looked at were, it asks for a member of the organization or group or individuals that were making the application to attend. To attend the public meeting and be present for that. Otherwise, it just asks for your basic information. What the proclamation is, who's writing it, what might be the benefit to the community making that proclamation.
They can apply, they'll be able to apply for online or something.
Yeah, exactly, right. It gives staff a little more certainty in how to develop these, sometimes it's just an email that comes in or, they contact the mayor, but this just gives them certainty and some process, so we can follow that through from the time we receive that, that notice until the actual date where it's on the agenda.
Yeah, if there's a standard way to do that, I think that's.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
The current process is just sort of we receive an email or.
you got it.
Right, so this
Yeah.
kind of streamlines
Okay,
it.
so on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I normally get a phone call like from, and they say, oh, can we do proclamation? I'll say, send us a sample one, I'll send it to Mark,
Yeah,
Mark,
exactly.
Donna will.
So now we'll have an
like,
actual
yeah.
process, and I think that's probably better to do it that way.
I'm supportive of
Hijacked me.
the application process.
Somebody hijacked it.
Page 28. We talked about remote attendance. At the retreat, and one thing we talked about is being on video, and it wasn't necessarily important that council members be on video for remote attendance, other than potentially if there's a vote, and and then we require a roll call if somebody is remotely, so that's the changes I made, to this section 7.08. Yeah, any other? It's okay. And page 29, there's again some text edits from City Hall Civic Center. Page 31 would be the next. Page of some edits. Development of the agenda. This is where I've spent some more time on city policy as well as this protocol manual. We had what was referred to as the 3-touch rule that wasn't referenced in the protocol manual. So our 3-touch rule was the council would see an agenda item essentially 3 times. Unless it's about the description of consent agenda items in the protocol manual. That is allowed through for the policy, allowed through briefings with council, the looking ahead agenda. So that's the first time you see it. The second time would be business agenda. Third time would be the action agenda. So those are the 3 touches, if you will. We talked a little about it can be onerous sometimes with rotating art galleries or approving a grant agreement that we've already had council approve to apply for and such items as that. Yeah, exactly. Things that were already budgeted. So I wanted to reference a policy. If this policy 100-10, probably change the rule from 3-touch rule because that wouldn't always be in place. So most likely it'd be a council agenda and council agenda briefings and reports would be the title of the policy and procedure. We'd reference that. A lot of it stays the same other than if you'll go to consent agenda. I'm gonna skip if you don't mind. Page 33, you see this highlighted portion. So page 33 outlines the matters that would be most likely to be on the consent agenda. You already see treasurer's report, vouchers. Very rarely have you seen resolutions or ordinance. We wouldn't do ordinances on the consent agenda. Those take a public hearing and then final approval. Final acceptance of public works projects, that these were all included in the existing protocol manual. What I have added after our retreat was procurement of equipment, supplies, and materials authorizing the annual budget. So if the annual budget is approved and that authorizes staff to make that purchase, I would recommend that item goes onto the consent agenda. Consent agenda would you would receive a briefing packet, much like you do now with the business and action agenda items. And with any item on the consent agenda, a council member could choose to remove it from the consent agenda for further consideration or public information to the action agenda on that same meeting. And then she ran acceptance, council's previously authorized, so that's there as well. Open for discussion on that. I know it can be a little bit of a change, but it certainly can be an efficiency for staff, and our council meetings.
So our touch would, we have a touch either with you in briefing or study session would be a touch.
You can still see it on the looking ahead.
Yeah. Okay. And then it would go to a business item
Of the business side.
and then it would go to consent. So, and we're gonna allow public comment on the business item.
No, yeah, we'd allow comment on the action agenda only is what we discussed.
So we would be pulling it off then to, if people want to make comments.
So
So,
the action agenda, and then you could have public comment for each action agenda item, correct? Too much as we do now.
okay, I just got lost again.
That's fine, sorry.
So, okay, so we have the business item. And then the motion is, I'd like to move this to the action agenda for next week or
Uh-huh.
2 weeks. So 2 weeks comes and we have it on the action agenda or the consent agenda, then it's a vote. If there's no discussion.
Unless
So-
we move by one council member. Yeah.
So when does the public get to comment on that?
On the consent agenda, we don't.
No, on this, on that issue, period.
During general public comment would be the opportunity.
Aren't all of these items also already covered because it's either a grant that we agreed to apply for so the public could comment then, or a budget item that we've agreed to pay for so that they could comment then, right?
They've essentially been approved by council already.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the intent, right? We've already gone through a process for approval and public comment at that point. It is. I'll give you for example, well, not a perfect example, but the last couple of weeks, we've approved several grants. The $1.8 million for the Ingleside Reservoir Project, the 3.6 million for Kelly North. The number is escaping me.
Joe was here, he would
It's
know.
over, yeah, it's over 3 million. So we've approved those grant applications.
Yeah.
Right, and then we've gone to make those monies real, it takes us a month. And we're getting the state hounding us to sign the contract documents, sign the grant documents, make these things real. Staff can hire the consultants as we put these projects, in motion. And if you've already approved that grant, for the $1.8 million reservoir, project, that would go to the consent agenda for approval by council. If council wanted to discuss that further, you would move it to the action agenda that night, so we could still move it through the process and get approval. And
You would skip the business agenda.
pardon me?
It would skip the business agenda.
Right, yes. Again, this is your process. We're certainly willing to, move this forward as you.
Funding
As you
as we
go.
need, but the funding come in as we need it, as we can get it.
Yeah,
You know?
I just want to make sure the public still has an opportunity to speak on anything that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So they come in, they got their 3 minutes and then they want to talk about. They want to talk about the $1.9 million water project, and that's it, 3 minutes, boom, done, and we move on to the next item. Okay. Okay, because now we say any item that's not on the agenda, you can talk about. Now it'll be any city business item you can talk about.
It says any, it
Okay.
says, actually, the open public comment is any issue you put before the council. It's not on the agenda.
Okay,
Is how our public comment descriptions.
so we'll be changing that because now we're gonna not allow public comment on action or business, or there is not.
No, action still has, every item has a public comment portion. That's not changing.
But if we're moving stuff to the consent agenda, at what point are they talking about that?
They're not. And there's no change, right? You approve vouchers without public comment.
No, but we have business and we have action and we have, and now we're getting rid of action on some items, so the public doesn't have a chance to comment on a business item. So that's what I'm talking about.
Is public comment, we've talked about moving public comment to the beginning. Will that
Yes.
be before we approve the consent agenda?
That's the question tonight, yes, is it gonna be before or after consent agenda? We've had it two different ways, I think, when I look back at here at the city. Right now, I moved it in front of the consent agenda, as you see here, but that was part of the discussion. Do you want it before or after the consent agenda? So there's an opportunity to talk about it before.
If we move it
Consent
before the
agenda
consent
items.
agenda and people are talking about it, that would give us a good reason to move it to action and open up the discussion. more.
Right.
Yeah, that way.
That gives it-
Pull it off, like you
Right,
said.
yeah, good call too.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we're not cutting anybody out.
Absolutely.
Right, and I completely agree with that, but I also agree with
Yeah.
making it flow a little more
I mean,
efficiently.
I mean, I definitely would love to move things faster. You know, we hear something on business and we hear something on action and that sometimes, well, I already heard that 2 weeks ago. So why am I hearing that again?
Right.
So I get it. We want to speed that up, but I also don't want to cut the public out.
Yeah.
Because they might not know. They might watch a meeting at home on a Tuesday and go, oh my gosh, I need to go talk about that in 2 weeks. And then we're gonna say, oh, no, you can't talk about it. Sorry.
If we believe there's an opportunity for public, if it's an ordinance, and it's a code,
Right.
amendment, it's changing the code, that's gonna come to an action agenda, item, right?
Right.
It's going to
Seven
be,
months, yeah.
it's gonna be these, I don't know how to put it, but it's gonna be these process oriented, action, issues that come before council already previously, and it's just affirming those process oriented, issues, so we can move forward. I'm happy to roll this in differently if you like. We can go through the briefing process and make sure you're comfortable with the consent agenda briefings before we set.
I'm comfortable with the information that I get. I'm all about the public. So
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with anything that, when you tell me something or if I have a briefing or we have a study session, I'm comfortable. I just want to make sure the public's not cut out of the process. As long as they're not cut out of the process, I'm okay with it. So, I mean,
No, it doesn't do that at all, actually, the way it's set, the way he set it up. Because most of what they're talking about is stuff we've already approved, and we've already had hearings on the budget. So
Yeah.
people have always had to comment, been able to comment on the budget. Anytime we accept the grant, it's brought up in front of the council. They come in and talk about all that, and then people have the opportunity to make comments there too. So, you know, there's always an opportunity.
yeah, I get all that. I just want to just making sure. that-
And to be clear too, signing authority for the city manager is $30,000. So
Right.
anything above that automatically has to come to council.
Well, I'd like to change that. Talk about that. Yes,
Lower it.
we could.
Anything over $5.
Yeah.
Correct, does. Consent agenda would be long. Okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm supportive of trying it out. Let's see how.
Yeah,
Do you understand?
Yeah.
I want to make sure.
Yeah.
that it kind of skipped around. I want to make sure you're clear that what the intent is. Okay.
I remember. the
Okay,
discussion.
great. So I'll go back to page 32 then, and just grab the general public comment portion from later in the agenda. This is actually showing the agenda. And moved it up. Past, behind council reports and recognitions before the consent agenda. So there's opportunity to make any comments on anything on the consent agenda.
Has to go there, so that's fine. It has to go in front, so,
Okay.
yeah. You guys,
Absolutely.
What's that was before?
all right.
Great.
Yeah, moving the discussion to the end of the meeting, the theory back then was so people could, at the end, maybe the council could answer some questions. You know, people would have questions about the whole agenda and the council could answer, but we really never really kind of got to that, so. I remember
we
that.
tried it and that's, I mean, we
Yeah,
gave it a shot.
Yeah,
Right?
so I don't mind being in there.
We had public comment after every item on the business agenda and the action agenda
Yeah.
at the same time as well. And it didn't get taken advantage of very often. Sometimes it did get taken advantage of. It really was productive. We want to make sure we're productive and we answer to the public. So we'll do our best that our agenda briefings are comprehensive. They have the information available to council and the public prior to the meeting. That these our agendas are available a week prior to the meetings and posted on the city's website, so they can be sought at that point. Happy to see, questions. I can be sought out for questions regarding that agenda. If it's something that comes up on the consent agenda that is of concern to the public, I'll certainly let council know, and we can take the opportunity to put that to the action agenda that night for further consideration and public comment. Good. Down to page 44. This is in reference to vacancy. Well, first of all, 12.01, you don't have a mailbox key. I don't know when a council member would have had a mailbox key, but and I added, we're going to photo identification here before long, so you'll have those, we'll probably want those back, so you know, run around after your term, you know, impersonating a council member. I mean, the business card, I just started thinking everything would be issued to council members, frankly, I don't think we care. But it's there, so. The next portion, 1202, is specific to filling council vacancy. That's timely, as we've been speaking about Councilmember Schmidt's departure and resignation. So going through this part that we didn't necessarily go through at the retreat, thought that there's an opportunity to clean up some of the language, clarify this, bring it maybe into modern times, as well as identify some opportunities. So, part of the, let's talk about the process here. So I'll talk about this. This will kind of morph into the next agenda item too. So forgive me if I'm moving back and forth. But it talks about the application process and where we place those. Frankly, in today's digital age, I don't know if we need to post them at the library or the school district or the Chamber of Commerce. So these organizations will make sure they have that information available to them. But not necessarily a hard copy to set on the top of their counter, right? They'll be able to have a link to the city's website for all the information here. So I just thought that was worth clarifying, because if we did leave that in there, certainly staff would go through those efforts to place those, you know, at those locations, because this is the council protocol manual, we follow that every instance possible. I'll go back down to B in voting. I thought this just needed a little, be a little more robust and talk about the voting process. So you'll see A was the item that was existing. This just describes the process a little more succinctly, and it's a process we followed in the past back in 2020.
Mayor Rogers.
Yeah. Resigned, and we filled that spot. So we basically followed this process already. It's just putting in writing the protocol. So again, at the council meeting, and I'll go through this here in a second, the mayor would ask for nominations. Nominations are placed by a motion. Second, majority vote of the council. Council members will deliberate on matters such as the criteria for selection and nominate group of candidates. The mayor would then poll the council members that they're prepared to vote. Take place in that should notifies the council candidate. If more than one candidate, a vote must be taken for each candidate to vote. City clerk will record the votes, in the meeting minutes. Selection of the candidate to fill vacancy is made by a majority vote. Remaining 6 of the council members. If there is no majority vote, the council may postpone those elections. Previously, we've gone to another vote. So we did have a majority.
So at what point, I mean, we're gonna get applications in advance. You know, whether we
Yeah.
have 2 or 10.
Yeah.
We're gonna go through those and then we're gonna go into like an executive session and discuss those.
Let me talk about the process
Okay.
here. Yeah, that's next. Sorry, it's
Okay.
kind of got, yeah.
Okay.
I'll talk about the process leading up to the interview next.
Okay.
If you don't mind. So the term, again, I'll talk about that next, but the term essentially fulfilled most of the term of the council membership. The difference is, at the election in 2025, the candidate that's elected at that office, once the election is certified, they would do their term of office. And usually it's November, about 3 weeks after the election. So the person appointed would actually vacate that seat before the end of the year. That's for RCW. And if you don't appoint a qualified person to fill the vacancy within 90 days of the vacancy, the county commissioners will appoint a person to fill the vacancy.
Interesting.
So, I guess any more comments on protocol, I can move more specifically into the selection of vacancy.
We're gonna move on.
Okay. Thank you so much. That certainly helps staff as well, having that protocol manual, be more specific, allows council and staff, the certainty for processes.
Well, and if somebody asks, it's right there.
Yeah.
We're moving on.
Yeah,
So for the record, the last agenda item is council member appointment process.
So as we talked about, we'll have a vacancy within council as of tomorrow. Councilman Schmidt, as I said, RCW 42-12-010 outlines that the council has 90 days to appoint a replacement over the county commission and fill that vacancy. The term is through the 2025 general election certification. So appointment, whatever date that may be, that person fills through the certification of that general election 25. So I think it's May when you declare, right, for candidacy, file for candidacy. Whoever's successful for that seat in that election 25, which is when Councilmember Schmidt's term would be out, would take that seat upon certification, and then the candidate somewhere in there, and then that candidate would, that the appointed candidate would vacate that seat if they're not the elected person, right? So one that could be. Yeah. So again, for RCW, the council appoints the individual that would fill the seat. The protocol manual indicates that the staff will develop a display advertisement in the local paper. So not a legal ad, but a display advertisement that would have the specific information on council member seat available, how to apply, and candidacy requirements essentially. And then a link to an application that would be available on the city's website. Staff have developed a draft application that I'll show you here in a second. So it will essentially garner the information that you might feel beneficial in developing a list of applicants to interview for this process. The council will then conduct interviews in an open public meeting. After those interviews, the council may go into executive session to consider qualifications of those candidates, but not necessarily deliberate on those candidates. That has to be in a meeting. And then, as I mentioned, in protocol manual, council at that meeting. I've got a proposed schedule on the right-hand side of this, so it's a pretty quick timeline to those position. April 15th, we would release information to the press, make everything available on the city's website for applying for the seat. The display advertisements will run in the Shelton County Journal on April 18th and 25th with a May 3rd application deadline. That deadline will be 1 p.m. because our front doors close at 1, and if somebody wanted to bring in a hard copy, we want to make sure that we're able to obtain those. May 14th, it is a regularly scheduled study session. I'm proposing to schedule a special council meeting for 14th through that interviews. And then May 21st will be swearing in. The application process, I guess I'd like some feedback from you there. What we what we did in the past is we scheduled about 30 minutes for interviews. If we get 20 applications, we have to consider how to go through that process, so. Review by the council of the applications to, kind of narrow down applicants to.
Yeah.
To a reasonable, number that would be interviewed, and what kind of process that looks like. Is that a majority process as well? We can establish a subcommittee. Open to, it might be a new point, you know, you might get, you know, less than 10 applications, and then, we can do that 5 hours. One evening.
Yeah, I'm not interested in a subcommittee because I think that would allow 3 members to decide who we're gonna pick.
No, I don't
So
think
I'm not
that's-
interested in a subcommittee. I think that should, all 7 of us should make that decision. But it does sound like we're gonna need to have more, something here in the middle.
Okay.
If we have 20 applications, we gotta play it by ear, I guess, but I think somewhere in the middle, we're gonna have to have another executive session of some kind to weed down the 20, if there was 20. If there's 2 or 3, then maybe not, but if there's 20, then we're gonna probably need to weed them down before.
Or you have multiple days, you have interviews.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Are we
Yeah.
able to discuss them in advance in executive session? Could we just tag on an executive session to the end of the May 7th meeting?
that's what I'm thinking, if it's large,
Yeah.
if it's a large turnout.
What do you have an idea of what that threshold might be? Like I said, I think we went through 6 interviews in 2020.
I think
And
it's more
scheduled
than,
a half an
more
hour.
than 10 is a lot.
Yeah, it was a long night.
I'd say any more than 5 would probably we'd wanna.
Break it up.
You know, our application, I'll show you in a minute, is a little more robust and has some more questions in it that may have been asked at the previous interviews. So there's more information being bring from these applicants, if that's agreeable to the council as well, so.
Yeah, also, I think that 30 minutes is a lot also for an interview. I don't think we need 30 minutes per person. If out here in public, I think, you know, we're gonna have an application. Hopefully an upgraded in-depth application. We haven't looked at it yet. And then maybe have 10-minute interviews, 15-minute interviews, rather than 30 minutes is a long time to be having somebody sit right there. Well, you know,
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a long time.
May 7th, you don't get the applications in you know. Well, in advance, I mean, we can get those to you, we can get, if they're due by 1 p.m., we can get them to you by the end of the day, 3rd, does that give you enough time? Honestly, no, they're not.
She's checking her schedule, make sure she's not on vacation.
Certainly by Monday the 6th, for sure.
Pardon me?
Certainly by Monday the 6th,
Does
for
that
sure.
give you enough time if we had to take some time on the setup to review those applications and
Yeah, I think so.
okay.
We all have email.
Okay. And then the one thing I can't say explicitly, I don't think that's done in an executive session. I think that's in a public meeting. I'll double check that as well. That might be open deliberation as far as the selection of the candidates to interview. But I'll double check that. Else on the schedule. Here is a copy of the application that's been developed. Just a preamble, talking a little bit about, the application process, the deadline. The 3rd paragraph, our protocol manual asks for a question from each council member to be included in the interview process. So again, that'd be 6 questions if we add 1 from each council member. The one thing we did with the application is some of the more generic questions are added to the application. Why do you want to be a council member, right? You should have that up front. That's pretty specific. But the opportunity to ask questions that are specific, you know, to the council's role, their policy, their budget. You know, how would you approach, you know, pavement preservation programs, infrastructure projects, public safety, economic development, those are just kind of topics that I think are important to maybe vet out through that interview process, as you'll see there. Open Public Meetings Act, Public Records Act, as you know, you've been through the training with our city attorney, are specific and great source or liability risk to the city, so it's important those are followed. I'm not so sure that anybody from the general public will have a lot of knowledge of those coming in. It's our job to train new council members. But those are just some of, you know, general topics I think would be interesting to address with applicants. As we go down, the typical name, mailing address, length of time, current address. If you live to your current address list here, please list address, state how long you lived with those residences. The residency requirement is specific. It is 1 year residency in the city limits and a registered voter. So those are residency requirements for the council position. So if somebody, you know, moved within the city, they can certainly list those addresses so that can be verified. Contact information. One thing I want to make clear at the beginning of this, or right here, this document would become public record once it's submitted to the city, so it's discoverable to the general public. So we made that clear in disclaimer that if you don't want that's some of that specific information, that you certainly find another alternative or ask staff for guidance. Employment history, any volunteer experience. Again, registered voter, continues to reside in city limits. Convicted of anything like a traffic violation, traffic infraction, sorry. Couple of questions on what might be conflicts of interest to your spouse or any financial interest in. Which does business with the city of Shilton, make sure there's some conflicts of interest generated. Appointments. There's the general questions. Why are you interested in serving in this position? What do you feel is the primary responsibility of the council? Have you ever attended a council meeting, the Charlotte City Council? Yes, no. If yes, give an estimate of how many meetings you've attended in the past year. Asking about your attendance and making sure that individuals are clear that there's a requirement to regularly attend meetings and the date and when they're, you know, when they're held on Tuesday evenings. Just confirming that this process is clear on what the meant to be, and some references, and that wraps up the application. So,
I think the application is great. I was wondering about the questions. Can we have more than one, or is RCW just one?
No, that's our protocol manual. So that certainly could be addressed if. I think it's a time factor. If you have 6 questions, you're giving 5 minutes per, that's, you know, to answer, that's your 30-minute, you know, time frame. So, so up to council.
Introduction anyway.
Pardon me?
Come in and give an introduction anyway. I think that was how it started.
That's certainly part.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. So come up and do that. That way you get a feel and then you know what you want to ask.
Oh,
We
yeah.
need to ask the same questions to each
Yeah.
candidate. We can't deviate from.
Oh, okay.
So if I were to ask a question, I need to ask it to
Correct.
Are
all.
they all in the room at the same time?
They could be, yeah.
But actually, no, we want to keep this, so they don't have the questions.
Right, that's what I was, if,
Sorry, yes.
okay, I was like, if they hear this person's answer, then they could just piggyback.
Yeah, and then we'll have some communications, we'll ask you out of the honor system not to follow online. You know, the question and answer are going, so it's fair, it's unbiased.
We all sat out there together last time.
Yeah.
At the same table, so it wasn't anybody looking.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
No cheating.
Yeah. obviously, I can ask for questions over the next week. Receive those questions from council members, provide those back to you for review. If you want, it's up to you. If you want to send up more than one, we certainly can provide a comprehensive list and then make a decision on how many it's,
Well, I'd be more interested in them answering a question that we asked them and then maybe as a follow-up question.
and that's fine.
From somebody, of course, we have to ask that from everybody after that, but, because there may be some,
Not necessarily, you can ask for clarification or follow-up based on the answer they provided, but you have to start with
The
the
basic
first
question.
question. And certainly you have limitations, you can't ask about marital status.
Yeah.
Age, income, and we'll provide that.
no, I'm more
That means-
interested in, if I didn't get quite the answer I wanted a little bit more,
Sure.
being able to ask that,
Absolutely.
so.
Yeah, that's really common, sometimes the answer's there, you're trying to pull it,
Mhm.
from a prospective candidate, throughout the city.
Yeah.
Various, whatever position that, you kind of know, because you've read their application, you've read their resume, there's some answers in there. You may not have answered it, as, as completely as you would have thought, so you can certainly add a follow-up about whatever the topic may be.
I think the application's great. Any other questions on this? Yes, not.
Okay, so I'll make sure and reach out about questions. And then, I'll gather more information regarding the, selection, deliberation or selection of the applicants based on the application process. And we could schedule appropriately, for May 7th, sometime the council need to consider that.
Yep.
If necessary, to stay on the schedule that's proposed. We certainly can move that down a week if that's so warranted, make sure that we allow ourselves enough time.
Yeah, we definitely want to pick our own council.
Not 90 days.
Like, yeah, that's in,
Whatever happened?
no, well, it could, if,
Well, they only-
like,
so
if,
here, we've only had council. for-
yeah, if like four of us got ten crashed together,
Oh.
that the county would pick the four positions, I think.
That's
Uh,
pretty
We get an degree and they lagged on for 89 days and that they would decide for us, right? So
Or if there was no one.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
Hopefully that's not the
Yeah.
case.
All right.
Yeah.
Council have any new items for discussion tonight? Did we work on the, think about that dog?
I've got, if you don't mind discussing
Oh.
that a little bit.
I don't, since that was my idea.
So, Mr. Mayor, at last week's meeting, brought up adoption fees and made a donation to help maybe encourage some adoptions at the animal shelter. I'll go over the existing fees and tell you what Director Hill and we have come up with and talked to the mayor about. So our existing adoption fees are puppies that are dogs that are under 1 year of age are $500. Adolescent dogs from 1 to 2 years go to $350. Small dogs that are adults over that 2 years of age, and under 21 pounds are $300, and other adult dogs are $100. So what we proposed is that a $100 reduction of the adoption fee for the first 10 dogs, regardless of these fees. So if it was one of the other dogs over 2 years old and over 21 pounds, that would be a free adoption essentially. That'd be $100,
But they're thinking of license.
reduced from license, yeah,
Right.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Small dogs from 300 to 200, the adolescent dogs from 350 to 250, and then puppies from 5 to 4. So that would apply essentially over the next 10 adoptions.
Over 10, okay.
Regardless, yeah, so the $100 per adoption, that would apply over the next 10 adoptions, hopefully, find individuals in a good match that, take home a dog from the city shelter.
Are we advertising that? How are
We would advertise it, absolutely.
And if this worked, maybe we'd look at our dog fees a little bit again here in the near future.
Yeah.
It just actually works.
Yeah. Um. I'm just concerned that. Like, if you're just giving them a dog, are they gonna wind up not being able to afford vet fees and dog food and those types of things? So that's my only concern. I'm definitely not saying no. I'm just, a little worried about that.
Certainly a concern
Yeah.
of staff too, that's why we were looking at the reduction in cost of.
Right, no, I get that.
The dogs that are the least likely to be adopted are the larger adult dogs.
That's true.
They're just, so, when we were talking about it today, we thought that, that would be the greatest benefit, especially to the shelter.
I liken it to if you wait to afford to have kids, you never have any, right? So, I mean, people will, people make things work, so yeah.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
I do think that if the fence requirement is kind of,
All that.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I got tunnel vision. I do think the fence requirement, even if it's the honor system, should be in there because even if we're not even involved in reducing anything, I think that people should
Should have
have.
an application.
Because dogs shouldn't be on a chain and, you know.
Yeah.
They should be able to run.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I haven't had a dog in a long time, but I had one for 15.5 years, so.
There are plenty borrow.
And certainly if that happens, we can perform investigations of animal control if there's a dog chained up for a long period of time. It's it's not a healthy situation for that animal. We can investigate that.
All right.
Does that sound reasonable? At this point, we don't have to bring a fee schedule amendment to the council. What we do with donations that apply to something like recreation programs or fees, those are just applied to offset the actual fee that the individual pays. If the individual came in, wanted to adopt a dog, they would just be quoted the reduced fee. They didn't pay that, we'd apply the donation to that fee, so it would offset back to the fee at that point. Once the donations are, the total donations expire, that is adoptions. Programs then.
Well, I hope this helps.
Everybody like that option?
Sure, it's a good shot.
Try it out. Right. Okay, does the council have any more new items for discussion? No, all right, then this meeting is, or this study session is adjourned at 7:07 PM.